so much. That was beautiful. Reflective music for a reflective time. And that's what we're here for. About today, we're going to reflect a little bit. And that's important. When we're making decisions about a coming year and the rest of our lives, we do need to reflect, don't we? We do need to reflect honestly and carefully. So we're preparing for a new year. There's a parable that tells about a martial artist who kneels before a master in a ceremony to receive the hard-earned black belt. And after years of relentless training, the student has finally reached this pinnacle of achievement and discipline. Before gaining the belt, you must pass one more test, the master says. "I'm ready," responds the student, maybe expecting one more round of sparring. "You must answer one question," says the master. "What is the true meaning of the black belt?" "Why, the end of my journey," says the student. "A well-deserved reward for my hard work." The master waits for more. Clearly, he's not satisfied. "You're not ready for the black belt. Return in 1 year." So the student kneels before the master a year later. He's again asked the question, what's the meaning of the black belt? "It's a symbol of distinction and the highest achievement in our art," the young man says. Again, the master waits for more, and no more is forthcoming. "You're still not ready. Return in 1 year." A year later, the student kneels before the master and hears the question, what is the true meaning of the black belt? This time he answers, "The black belt represents not the end, but the beginning, the start of a never-ending journey of discipline, work, and pursuit of an ever higher standard." And that's what we get with the beginning of a new year. Every year, we're still working toward that higher standard and becoming the best we can be while still here on this earth. Now today, what we're going to talk a little bit about this process is preparation. And the preparation allows us to release what no longer works for us. And you may have even identified something this year that no longer works for you. Release that. If you don't know yet how to release it, at least you're getting a plan for how you can release it. And decide who it is you want to be. How do you want to feel? Those are big decisions. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, about preparation and a time of release and allowing. And we must be willing. We talked about that already this morning. So all wise people, like the young man seeking the black belt, know that change can be a new beginning, can't it? We've certainly seen a lot of change over the last couple of years. Anybody hasn't been affected by all of the change that we've seen? all of the things that have come up, allowing us to see who we are. There are a lot of power struggles right now, and I would invite you, instead of arguing with it, what I would ask someone to do, if they're seeing a way that they're struggling to continue to control their lives, and they're fighting for that, and whenever something comes in and it looks like the government or someone else is trying to exhibit control over you, I would just ask you to ask yourself one question. What am I refusing to see here? What am I refusing to see? Because we could be seeing the same argument that we saw all through the 20th century. Did you know that when seat belts were first required? Think about it a minute. How many people were never going to wear that seatbelt? You can't make me. You can't make me. So whatever issue it is that's coming up in your life, and you are fearing that someone else is going to try to control you, I'm not trying to talk you out of that, okay? But I'd say that's an invitation to look at where you might have a deeper issue, something else you might need to look at. Just an invitation. And I'm not saying who's right and who's wrong. But there were just so many things that came about last century that you'd hear the same argument. You'd probably hear that same person arguing right now. As a matter of fact, you're not going to make me wear a seatbelt. Anyway, just think about it. Think about it. How can I be more open-minded right now? How could I be more open-minded? That's all. So if we want to bring in our brightest future, we've got to be willing to let go of the old, some of our old thoughts, old ways. We have chosen not to see the highest good. There was a scene in the original Star Wars movie in which Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker are attempting to infiltrate the Empire's command post. And as the two pull up in their vehicle, they're checked by guards at the gate. And Obi-Wan waves his hand and says, "We're not the ones you're looking for." Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? We're not the ones you're looking for. And just like that, they looked elsewhere. It was just like a trance. We're not the ones you're looking for. The guard waves them on. And at a time when so many people are in fear and preparing for the worst, those who prepare for greater things can offset much of the darker energy that's trying to take a foothold. Even if things don't turn out exactly as you expect, one thing is for sure: when you prepare for the best, you dramatically increase the likelihood of that coming about. Would you say that's true? If you prepare for the best? Yeah, that's good. There's much more likelihood of that coming about, isn't there? There was another man that lived most of his life in the last century. His name was Robert Mueller. He was a different Robert Mueller than the one that's in the politics these days, but he spent most of his adult life with the UN, the United Nations, and doing good and trying to make the world a better place. As it turns out, he was also a positive thinker. He was born in Belgium and at just the wrong time, and he lived on the border of France, and he got a notice that he was being drafted into the Nazi army. He was totally opposed to everything they stood for. This was the worst news in the world that could have come for him when he was a young man. So he decided that he was going to do everything he could to not be drafted by the Nazi army. What a horrible thing. And we thought being drafted by our own army was bad. The Nazi army. Wrong place. Wrong time. Well, what he did, he decided to do everything he could physically. He did that, and he also bought a bottle of champagne, invited some of his friends over that thought the way he did, and he decided to celebrate ahead of time that he was not going to be drafted. So they celebrated and they partied and they pretended the best they could that he would not be drafted. And guess what? He wasn't. And as it turns out, he spent the rest of his life, he died in 2010, but he spent the rest of his life working for the UN and doing the best he could to bring good into the world. I'm just amazed with that story. I think it's a wonderful story. His name was Robert Mueller, in case you need to look that up. There's another person I wanted to tell you about this morning, too. It's a man named Reverend Ike. Has anybody ever heard of Reverend Ike? Hey, yes, Miss Alice has. Yes. He told his congregants, "This is the do-it-yourself church," he proclaimed. "The only savior in this philosophy is God in you." Isn't that cool? He came about at a time when he was ridiculed. People in his faith, the traditional Christianity, said, "This isn't a man of God. He speaks that you can be your own savior. How could that be?" He was an early teacher of New Thought, but he just didn't call it that. He was a master metaphysician who decoded the scriptures in an astounding way. He allowed the light to be shone on the scriptures. His true genius is acknowledged as lessons are widely recognized in the universal truths that he taught. He's known as a master teacher, a mentor, inspiration by many famous motivational teachers and authors such as Bob Proctor, Dr. Michael Beckwith from The Secret, and Mark Victor Hansen, the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Hansen said that he was deeply, deeply changed by what Reverend Ike said. He said, "I went bankrupt and I was wiped out financially." He said, "I was sleeping in front of a door when somebody said, 'What you need to do is hear Reverend Ike.'" So he says, "I went to hear him at his church and I was wowed. At that time, I'd never heard anybody preach and teach positive self-image, psychology, and self-motivation like Reverend Ike." He said, "I sat in the pews of his church and worked with his stuff, and now I am blessed with success that is even hard for me to believe." He could go on and on and on about Reverend Ike and his teachings. Reverend Ike, the success and prosperity preacher, has been a teacher or was a teacher for over 40 years spent his life teaching others. The interesting thing is his father was a fundamental preacher and teacher. And so when Reverend Ike started teaching his prosperity techniques, everyone, including his family, thought maybe he had lost his mind. But he went on to teach a lot of people to be positive and to use their talents and to look for the positive. He said what we say here every Sunday, and that is that Jesus taught us that we could be the light also. That God was not only in him, but the light, love, is within each one of us. Jesus said that we could do what he did. And this is what Reverend Ike taught over and over and over again. So the question is not, what will 2022 bring to you? You can read all the horoscopes you want. But what it's truly going to come down to is what you decide and what you choose to do with your life. Who am I? How do I want to feel at the end of this year? And who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What kind of example do I want to be to others? That's one of the things I want to do with my life. My husband was watching it's not the road show, the guys that go around in their van and, oh yeah, the pickers, you knew. You read my mind. And I couldn't help being a bit sad, though, because it seemed to me, and I don't know what channel that's on, but all of the advertisers were charities. And first there was the ASPCA, and oh my goodness, if those ads won't grab your heart, I don't know what will. And then there was St. Jude's, and then there was the World Wildlife Association, and they had an ad on for the polar bears that are losing their habitat. And I just silently got up and went into the bedroom and prayed for a little bit. And I said, okay, God, now are these things that needed to be brought to my attention? And the truth is, yes, they did. Do I need to dwell on them and make myself sad and depressed? No, you do not. They're brought to our attention so that we can stoke that loving, compassionate, kind peace that's within us and become a better person right here while we're on this earth. We can do good. We can bring people up. We can bring animals. We can improve the habitat for others, other humans. Does that mean I need to dwell on it all the time and be sad? No, because then I cannot achieve my purpose. But one of the things I would like to encourage you to do as you're deciding who you're going to be, how you're going to feel this year, is that one thing that has become astoundingly clear to me throughout my life, and that is whatever goals I have for myself, it must include good for others, or it's not going to work. It's like a lot of the marketing campaigns of the past. The reason they don't work is that people were only wanting to scam others. And we know that people did. They were just looking to line their own pockets. But if you can align what's going to bring good into your own life with doing good in the world, you're going to be prosperous beyond measure. I read a story of a man that had retired and he was finally able to golf. He was going to really learn how to be a great golfer. So he was with this group and all they wanted was to become great golfers. As a matter of fact, they were so serious about it, they were not one bit of fun. They critiqued each other till he said it was not fun at all. So he decided to let himself off the hook and do what brought him joy. So he found some other partners that just wanted to go out and have a good time. And if they improved their game in the process, that was just a bonus. So whatever it is that we want for ourselves, it needs to improve the world. We want to make the world a better place. I know now when a telemarketer calls, you just hang up on them. But I remember years ago, I would try to give them a little mini lecture. I would say, you know what, I'm going to say a prayer for you that you'll find a better job. And you sound like a nice person. I hope you'll go out and find a job that will, be on the up and up where you're not trying to scam somebody. And a couple even listened. But nowadays, those are just robocalls and they're recorded. And oh my goodness, that's my prayer for the world, is that we're all after the highest good and we want to do the best for the world. Whether it's the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, we all belong to God's kingdom. And I just pray, here is my prayer for you. You'll let go of all those things. Just as Obi-Wan Kenobi said, no, that's not us. No, that doesn't belong to me anymore. I'm going to reject that and I'm going to let that go. Because you know what? That's not furthering me in the world. That was just my ego talking. I'm going to let that go. So what I hope and pray for you is that you will have your best year ever. And you're going to end up this year saying, wow, that was great. Let's do that again. Thank you for your time.